All right. What is happening, everybody? Just camera here. Like the surface is always so low. Anyway, how's everybody doing today? I'm actually going to put on some music real quick here. I want to put on some Witcher. I don't know if y'all ever played The Witcher, but Witcher 3, definitely one of my favorite games. Not much of a gamer anymore, but so let's just go ahead and dive right in, shall we? Going to go ahead and pull up my screen. Do a screen share. These. All right. Today is November 22nd, and what we're going to be discussing today is the shadow. I'll talk briefly about the shadow, and I'm sure all of you are aware of the shadow. If not, then you have at some point in your life experienced aspects of the shadow coming forth, often when you least expect it. Music pulled up. Now let me go ahead and do a screen share. We got our shadows we're going to be talking about. And I like this quote a lot from Carl Jung. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And before I proceed, if y'all have trouble hearing me at all, just let me know. Just let me know in the chat. I I don't know if the music is too loud or how it comes across for you all. So I just want to make sure that that's squared away. So, in terms of divine masculinity, how does that relate to the shadow? First of all, the shadow is within all of us. Every single one of us have a shadow. The shadow is basically the repressed or unexpressed parts of ourselves that house a part of our unconscious, our psyche, that we don't want to show the world. We don't know how to express that. And I was going to put it on here, but well, I'll get into that in just a second. So, for divine masculinity, in order to become a fully conscious, mature, divine masculine man, the only way to do that is by embracing our shadow, is by embracing the wholeness of who we are. And we can only do this by stepping into the shadow, by integrating these fragmented parts of ourselves, these repressed parts of ourselves, being aware, not only aware of them, but connecting with that part of ourselves. It's like picture yourself as a child, a scared, lonely version of yourself as a child, just wanting to be recognized, wanting to be seen. And you get to the point where you'll do anything to be seen, where you'll even act out in a bad or negative way just so that somebody will pay attention to you. This is often what happens with our shadow because we want that part of us wants to be heard, it wants to be seen, but so often what we do is we just repress it, we push it down, we numb ourselves, and this causes more issues later on in life. It causes buildup to happen. This buildup of energy, it accumulates over time, and if we're not aware of this happening, it will eventually destroy us, or rather, destroy the ego, the persona. It's going to tear down the basically the structures that we have built for ourselves because it wants to be seen, it wants to be heard. And yeah, if we don't integrate this, then we're not going to be able to fully mature as men, as masculine, mature, divine masculine men. And something I have talked extensively about in the group is the four dominant masculine archetypes. That's the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. These are exemplified through the book, through the writing of Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette, King, the Warrior, the Magician, and the Lover. I've been talking extensively about this book. It's been a game changer for me to understand and fully become aware of the archetypes that have been prominent in my own life. And I've talked about my own personal experiences as well with that. I've discussed that in the group. The different archetypes, how they've shown up in my life, how these shadow elements have shown themselves, and how I've had to work through these in order to get back to the wholeness of my own being. Again, it's the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. So, what is the shadow? Well, as we've been discussing, it's basically the unconscious aspect of yourself that we often resist, the part of us that we are in conflict with, the unexpressed and unconscious parts of ourselves that haven't been healed. And I will probably go into this next week, but I wanted to discuss the topic of shamanism, or more specifically, soul fragmentation, because what happens with our shadow is it's the shadow grows when we don't shine the light on it. And oftentimes, what happens is when we experience trauma, we have fragmented parts of ourselves that splinter off. And these splinters cause us to, it basically invokes the power of the shadow. And from that point forward, we are separated from a core aspect of our being. And it hides through the shadow. It hides, we see it come up through the shadow at various times in our life. Oftentimes when we don't want it to come up, when we least expect it to come up. But these fragmented parts of ourselves, they are crying out for us to reach back out to them so that we can bring them back into our body, into our consciousness, rather, and integrate that within ourselves. Otherwise, it's going to come up at some point or another. And that's what the shadow is essentially, is these parts of us that aren't being expressed, that need to be expressed, but we choose to look the other way. We choose to deny these parts of ourselves, and it further fragments us from the core of who we are. the elements of our psyche. I'm not going to go too deeply into this. I've discussed it in previous videos, the archetype video, but basically this is what I refer to when I talk about the self, the persona, the shadow, and then I haven't really gotten into the topic of the anima and animus yet. And honestly, that's still kind of a topic I'm really figuring out because it's been difficult for me to wrap my head around. But to keep it specific here, the shadow is what we're talking about, which is right here, the shadow. As you can see, it's a person standing there, and its reflection is reflecting back almost like demon horns, because it's the part of us that we might see as evil, the part of us that we might see as wicked, the part of us that will do unexplainable things. And what happens is we drift as we go through this life, we drift away from the core of ourself, the self right here. That's what I'm going to refer to as our core, as our core being. And in order to survive, we create masks for us to show up in different environments in different ways so that we can survive and thrive. Because like most of us respond and react and connect differently to different people. I mean, it's a natural human instinct. Not to say that you're being fake or inauthentic, but when you go to a specific environment, if you go to work, you don't want to reveal the core aspects of who you are because you have a role to play, you have a job to fulfill. And so what we do is we put on these personas, these masks, in order to give us the ability to navigate through these situations. And that is so that's what I'm referring to here with the persona. The persona essentially hides the shadow because we hide behind these masks that we wear in order to prevent the shadow from coming to the surface. Now I want to get into the shadow archetypes as referenced in the book that I just showed you, The King, the Warrior, Magician, and Lover, rediscovering the archetypes of the mature masculine. So within each archetype, within each of these four archetypes, exists a shadow aspect of that archetype. And I just wanted to go into each individually to discuss how these show up in our lives in the variation of different ways. And then to be able to overcome them and integrate them with our being. So, yeah, so I'm just going to dive into these four because that's what's discussed in the book. And that's the main archetypes that are connected to the masculine energy. So we have the king. The king in his fullness has two major functions. There's the ordering and then providing fertility and blessing. So look at it like this. The king is like the center of the circle because the king's job is to create structures, create orderliness for his people to survive and thrive. He not only has to take care of his people, but he also has to ensure that they are protected, ensure that they are safe from other invading forces, from other tribes, from invading, from even outside things like animals, wild animals from coming in. His job is to maintain that balance. essentially. And so when you look at the king, like the center of the circle, that is where we draw our energy from. That is the core of who we are. And when we're not stepping into that king energy, we're not operating from that center point. We're not operating from the core of ourselves. And so what happens is instead of ordering, we fall into the state of disorder, to a state of disordering. So things seem to fall out of place. See, things never seem to truly line up for us. And we don't have that sense of fertility and blessing from that king energy. So we're not able to manifest and align with the elements that we need in order to transform our lives. And we see this king archetype in many different cultures. In ancient Egypt, it was the god, the deity Ptah or Ma'at. And I actually have a book, trying to think of the name of it. It basically goes into the order of the Ma'at and like I wish I could think of the name of it because the whole aspect of the Ma'at is about creating balance, creating orderly structure. And this is also referred to in Hinduism as the Dharma and in Chinese culture as the Tao. We see this a lot in young men today, that they don't have this king energy blessing. They don't have not only the knowledge of how to step into it, but they don't have the experience. They don't have the people in their lives to be an example of what that even looks like. And that's why so many men are confused today because we transition from boyhood to manhood, but we never actually have a true transition. We never actually have that sense of blessing from the king within us, or even the keen energy within other men. It's key for us to have that sense of elderly guidance so that we can make our way back to ourselves, so that we can find our way back to the center point of who we are. We follow all these celebrities and all these people in the media looking for answers, looking for guidance, when in reality, all they're doing is leading us astray from that center point because they're not embodying the true keen energy. They're not giving us the true blessings that we need, giving us that sense of guidance that will allow us to step into that in our own lives. Instead, what they're giving us is a false sense of security, a false sense of hope, because it's not true, it's not authentic. That's why so many men can't get it together, as they say, because they don't have the understanding of how to do that. They don't know how to create that sense of orderliness. And I've struggled with this in my own life. I mean, my honestly, my life right now is kind of chaotic. You know, I moved about 2 months ago, and ever since my partner and our boys, ever since we've moved, it's been difficult to create a sense of orderliness in the house, like to stay organized, to stay focused. You know, so I've struggled with that even recently. So it's something I'm still working through. I'm still healing through as well, and understanding how to embody my own keen energy. So as part of that, I started a 30-day accountability challenge, which I've posted in my group every day. But it actually I need to post in there today from yesterday. But technically I'm at day 31 because I missed like 3 days. I was out of town and I was driving for 15 plus hours. It was like within the span of 3 days, I was driving 30 plus hours, you might as well say. So I could have stepped into that, but I thought it was best not to. and just make up for the days later on. So, in an attempt of doing this, it's allowed me to create that sense of orderliness in my own life, that accountability, that strength to bring me back to my own center point so that I can have that sense of foundational structure and strength and fortitude to push myself forward, to help push other people, other men in that direction, and be a guide stone by simply rediscovering that in my own life. So let's dive into the shadow aspect. So there's the tyrant, and it's like your stereo. It's like your. Sure, you've seen plenty of movies, plenty of shows that has the king that's domineering, wants to control everything, wants to have all the power, all the money, all the women, everything. He wants it all. And he wages war on his children even. He exploits his daughters sexually or his son's weaknesses and his vulnerability. It's like it's what we would refer to in our society. If you see this in everyday lives, it would be what we refer to as the narcissistic personality disorder. Because it's like this individual thinks so highly of themselves that they believe they are that center point. And so everyone around them, they believe has to revolve around them. And they'll do whatever they have to do to get that. They'll lie, cheat, steal, manipulate in order to create this life for themselves. It's their way of creating structure, creating that sense of orderliness. But it's done through the shadow. It's done through a sense of control rather than a sense of peace and love. Like they're not operating from the center point, which is the heart. They are operating from their mind, from their urges, or rather from their unexpressed and repressed parts of themselves. And you'd see this in professions such as drug lords, pimps, mafia bosses, things like that, because these men, they get so much power that it's like nobody can oppose them. And they feed off of that. They exploit others when they wish. They essentially do whatever they want because no one has the power to step up and to stop them. So they think of themselves so highly that they're like that center of the circle. The next one I want to discuss here is the weakling. So this is the man that lacks centeredness, calmness, security. It often leads to paranoia, so he may believe that people are out to get him when they're not. Causes him to react to situations in ways that put himself at risk, in ways that create more disorderliness for himself. So in his attempt to control the situation out of this sense of weakling energy, he becomes paranoid and overly abrasive to the point where he's not able to ground himself down in his reality in the center of the circle. And it's like he's on the outside of the circle trying to act as if he's acting from the inside. It creates an imbalance, creates a it eventually leads to an eruption because eventually something's going to break through that and something's going to cause him to snap. And this you might often see as the person that seems cool-headed and rational, nice. But once they get promoted, they become like a different person. They become just pompous and overly controlling due to that power that they're not used to having. This comes from the void energy, the weakling prince, which discussed briefly in the archetype video. Those have been all running today. Next one is the warrior. The warrior is one of the most prominent aspects of the masculine energy. It's what you would think of as a masculine man. And we see this in our soldiers, athletes, motivational speakers, people that, CEOs that have paved the way for others. They have put in the work, they have put in the action, and they have created an incredible life for themselves by pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, by taking action and being resilient through that, staying consistent. However, when the warrior's energy goes too far, goes to the dark side, it becomes what he refers to as a masochist or a sadist. And the masochist is basically the cowardly side, whereas the sadist is the domineering and destructive aspect of the masculine. So yeah, it's got how the shadow warrior lives only to serve himself. When he becomes too consumed into the warrior energy, that's when he gets sucked into the blackness of destructiveness. And it's all about control. It's all about doing whatever it takes to get to that objective. And that's where you might see the Nazis would be an example where they become so brainwashed on an idea that they become like passionless killing machines. And I believe it talked about in his book how there's a situation where I believe it was the Nazis, they trained them to become like this by they would give them like a puppy and they would raise up the puppy, and then upon any moment's notice they would have them kill the puppy, after raising them for weeks or months. I don't remember how long they said it was, but basically it was training them to become emotionally detached and to do whatever they have to do in order to carry out their mission. And then talks about there's two different types of cruelty. There's cruelty without passion and cruelty with passion. Without would be like I mentioned the Nazis, Darth Vader. It's a good example. Should have stuck a picture of him here, but that's just doing whatever you have to do and no regards to other people and what they're feeling. And then the cruelty with passion is like Shiva's dance of destruction due to the imbalance of the world. The most common example for the warrior energy to show up is in our military. And they do this through what's called ritual humiliation. Basically, they strip them down of everything, and they get them in front of these large groups of people, and they say the worst shit. They do the worst shit to like create this emotional detachment. So that way they have to be strong warriors. Not exactly the best method because it creates a lot of repressed parts. It like pushes down so much that lead to shadow aspects, shadow warrior aspects, such as what we're talking about here. Especially the sadist archetype. Either it's going to push you towards one end or the other, generally speaking. It's not a fully integrated and grounded way of creating the sense of initiation that men need, this sense of this rite of passage that will help to step up and to step into these fully integrated parts of ourselves. Basically, the masochist is unsure of his phallic power and still battling that feminine energy within him, trying to not let it overtake him. I've dealt with this a lot, honestly, is this cowardly type of energy. I remember when I was a kid, I remember that I would have this thought of like if I was playing outside and someone came running down the street screaming bloody murder and they needed help. I felt like, I played this scenario out more than once. I felt like in that moment, I would not be able, like I would want to run. And instead of like embracing this warrior energy and being able to show up and to help people that need help people that may not be able to help themselves, I just wanted to run. And I hated that aspect of myself because I truly want to help people. I truly want to give back. I truly want to empower people to protect my loved ones, to protect anybody really that needs help, that needs assistance, that needs protection, that needs guidance and support, strength and courage. But instead, I was so internally weak and fragmented that if that were to happen, in my mind, I would have ran inside and tried to avoid the whole situation. Like it was all about avoidance. And that goes back to, we have different attachment styles too, which I'm not going to get into here, but it created a lot of avoidance attachment styles in my life, which translated into my relationships, translated into my relationship with myself. It created a rift between who I was and who I wanted to be. So over time, I've had to work through this so I could heal that, so that I could step up and be the courageous warrior leader that other people need, other men need, because that's what I needed more than ever. And my dad was my dad was a pretty strong man. Like he wasn't I'd say he wasn't either aspects of this. I wouldn't say he was on the masochist or the sadist side, but he was kind of like in the middle. However, there was just like aspects throughout daily life that I would notice that, especially in terms of like my mom, she would do a lot. And she was really sick. She didn't have any kidneys. And she would just always take the initiative and just jump into stuff and just get stuff done. And that's that warrior energy coming through. But my dad was not that way. He's very passive in that sense, to where he would procrastinate and put things off and make excuses. Like, we'd say, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to clean out the building tomorrow or whatever. And we wouldn't do it, which as a kid, that was good because I just wanted to play games, play my toys or whatever it was. Um, but I noticed as I got older, I was em employing similar patterns. And so I've had to work back through that. On the flip side, he would be reactive at times. I mean, he was pretty objective, like he was pretty understanding, but there were times where he would lose his cool and he wouldn't be able to be grounded and centered in that warrior energy. So he would, you know, be a dick, which yeah, I mean we can all be, but yeah, so basically seeing him and how he showed up in that way caused me to show up a similar way in my own life. Except for he was a lot more courageous than I was. He, especially when he was in school, like he got into a lot more fights, and he would be able to just like put himself fully out there on the football field. Whereas me, I always had this sense of like I was holding myself back and I could feel it. Like there was just like I was never able to fully let loose on the field, really at all. And it's created, and throughout my life, it created a lot of repressed shadow aspects to where it's like I wanted to bring this up, but I couldn't because it was just like it was like this stuck, stagnant ball of energy inside of my stomach that it just like I couldn't bring it to the surface. You know, it was so painful to feel and to look at. I didn't know how to connect and express it in a healthy and meaningful way. And what I needed was someone there to help me step into that, to help me become mindful and conscious of it. I mean, I had other experiences that caused me to have trauma, but you know, we all have trauma that comes up one way or another. So for me, yeah, I just wasn't able to step into that warrior energy fully. I just wanted to run. So this really hits home for me. It's helped me to step into the fullness of my magician, not magician, my warrior energy, and to be a strong, driven, focused leader so that I could be courageous in the face of danger, in the face of uncertainty, uncomfortableness, and be a light for others to help shine and so that they can find their way and be inspired to step into that in their own life. Next one is the magician. So the magician is found essentially anywhere that there's hidden knowledge, there's esoteric information that comes through, there's things that have to be studied in order to learn, you know, like a trade, a master electrician. You have to study for years, going through actually doing the work experience, getting hands-on experience, but also studying, understanding what you have to do in order to work with this. Uh, Goes all the way to be an electrician, be like a medical student, studying the secrets of the body. I mean, really any profession. You're going to, as you progress and you learn more, you're going to step more into that magician energy because you're becoming aware, you're understanding more of this topic that most people don't know. And there's a group of people, the Druids, which I really connect to, and they are what I feel like is most associated with the magician energy. And what they would do, they would study for like 20 plus years on all the different topics, on all the science and all the physics and metaphysics, and astronomy, astrology, like all the things, so that they could get a full understanding of life and its function and how it works. And they would even know how to work with the elements. They would know how to bend the elements to their will, to like literally create what we would consider magic, because they had that hidden esoteric knowledge of how to tap into that. Because really, this world is just energy and frequency and vibration. Once you understand that, you can harness and tap into the energy of it. You can begin to work with and manipulate it at your will. And if you don't have the best of intentions, then you're going to get lost in that sea of energy. You're going to be consumed by it to the point where you begin to manipulate people, you begin to utilize knowledge to exploit people. That's where the shadow magician comes in. Magicians themselves, like I mentioned, their whole purpose is to unveil the unknowing and to go deeper into the hidden aspects of whatever it is that they're discussing, whatever topic it is that they are learning about. The whole goal is to bring that up into the light so that they can essentially integrate that into what they already know and to embody it, so that way they can create a foundational structure for which they build upon, and it begins to raise, elevate them to new heights, to new levels, so that they can do things that we would consider impossible. Basically, he knows how to channel the psyche's inner dynamics. Which I got here is knows how to work with that energy, how to control it, move it, manipulate it. So, as I discussed briefly, the shadow archetypes of the magician or the manipulator, which he does this by controlling the information that comes through. And we see this a lot on controlled press briefings, censored news, just politicians are especially bad for this because they tell us what they want us to hear, when in reality they're doing the exact opposite. And yeah, that's definitely a prominent aspect of our collective psyche of what we're seeing today. The other one is the passive aspect of the magician, which is the innocent one, which uh, this is like the magician may know things, but instead he wants to act. What's the word? He wants to act as if he doesn't know. So basically, the innocent one is using the persona of a naive, that was the word, a naive, innocent child, so to speak, is where it comes from, because as children, you really don't know. But as you get older, you begin to understand more. And so you start to embody this in your adult life, and you start to see yourself as a innocent bystander. Like, even when you do something or something comes through, you want to act like you don't see it. You want to act naive to the fact that this is right in front of your face. And I had a friend that I would several years back, like she was like a mirror for me to see this aspect of myself, because she would do it on a level that was like 10 times what I was doing, because this is something, this is a aspect that I've dealt with. It's like when I was in school, I would act like I was dumb, when really I was just trying to push back the lessons so that we didn't have as much homework. So essentially I was manipulating the situation by acting as if I didn't know what was going on. But then that would be supplemented to the point where I actually wouldn't know. So sometimes I would be asking a legitimate question. Other times I would be asking questions just to push it back and to extend it further. And then I would act dumb and just like, just say dumb shit sometimes because I wanted to be like the jester. I wanted to make people laugh. And I was using the magician archetype, the shadow magician archetype, to do that. Anyway, what I was saying is, like, my friend that I was connected with, it was interesting because because of the mirror that I felt from her, I was really attracted to her. And I began to notice like all the patterns of what she was doing. Like, it was so easy to spot. It would drive me insane because it was like I would literally tell her, like, what is it? I would say, like, I would tell her, like, I know that you did this, or I know that you feel this way, or whatever it is. But then you want to say the opposite. She'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I did do that. And then she would just go right back to doing it. Like, she was like almost almost to the point where like she was believing her own innocent lies. Like, she was embodying this naive, innocent one archetype so much to the point where she didn't know the difference between what was true and what she wanted to be true in her mind. So that's the danger when we get lost in this archetype. So um, going back to what I was doing in high school, when I got to college, I had to begin to shift out of that because I realized it was actually making me dumb on a subconscious level. And I was studying to be an engineer, so I was a physics major at the time because the college that I went to was a small private college, and it didn't have an actual engineering program, so I was a physics major. And like I had to utilize everything that I could, all of my resources, and I had to completely shift how I saw myself and my psyche so that I could actually understand what was going on in the lesson, or else I would fall way behind everybody else, which I did anyway. But I could tell that it created this fragmented part of myself that I had to work through and heal. Then I've got a how the magician archetype corresponds to the other archetypes. So the magician archetype, I forgot to mention, is all about objectivity and being able to see the perspective from a third person point of view, which I've done this a lot throughout my life. That's been one of the most prominent things I've been able to step into, and is that aspect of the magician energy. However, the magician alone doesn't have the ability to fully create the life that he wants without the other archetypes, because the magician is all about sitting back, observing, learning, taking all this information in, and in order to step fully into the path that you want to step into, you have to have the king energy because you need that sense of structure and orderliness and generosity. You need the warrior energy in order to act decisively with courage, to be able to take action, to step into the things you need to step into after you've been able to observe it from the magician archetypal perspective. And lastly, to utilize the power of the lover in order to come to a sense of connectedness, to be able to find a common ground and to connect with other people and share your wisdom and insights that you gain from the magician archetypal energy. And then last but not least, the lover. The lover is very interesting because the lover is the whole aspect, the whole archetype of the lover is basically opposite of all three of the other archetypes that we've been discussing. Um, Simply because the lover is all about freedom, is all about just openly expressing and having none of those boundaries and having, not having that discipline, just like being free and open, like a free spirit, like you picture, I feel like the hippies from the 60s are a good example of like a overly embodied lover archetype because they are all about like no boundaries and just doing what you want, free will and traveling the world, which I'm not saying that's bad. These things are bad, but they don't have that sense of boundary to the point where their relationships would suffer because they probably wouldn't be able to have like an actual relationship, monogamous relationship, or even a polyamorous relationship. They would because they would be intermixing their energy so much with so many different people that they wouldn't have the desire or the will to actually, come together in a sense of orderliness and boundaries. A big aspect of the lover also is about how they navigate through the world. They navigate through their sense of feeling. They navigate through their sense of sight and sound and taste and touch. It's all about being able to perceive the environment and to really appreciate the beauty in these aspects of life. It's all about that sensory, the sensory impressions that we receive from the external world. Because they are all about feeling, they're very connected and in tune with their emotions. They're very connected and in tune with their senses, their five main senses, but also, yeah, I mean, we have technically more than five senses: intuition and proprioception, which is basically being able to feel where our body is in space. Like I can have my hand over here and I can feel that my hand is over here. I can feel where it's at in reference to everything else. Anyway, getting off topic here. It's all about the sensations, all about the feelings. And this is something that I dealt with as well because as a kid, I was so overly sensitive that like literally the smallest thing would cause me to cry. Like I remember my dad, um, not even like teasing me, but you know how you like when when you have a crush on somebody, and it's a very sensitive topic at times, especially when you're young and you're new and you're like fragile, a fragile little child, still developing and stepping into these feelings. I remember him just like asking me about it, and like he wasn't even like teasing me, but he was just asking me questions, and I just like I just like couldn't help but cry. I was like started bawling. And like anytime anybody would raise their voice to me, I would just lose it. Like I would not be able to contain it because I was feeling so much. My like I was so connected to that lover energy. I was like just feeling everything, and I wasn't able to detach from it, which also caused, which I believe is a big reason why I wasn't able to step into my warrior energy fully because I was so immersed into the lover archetype, the shadow archetypal energy of like overly feeling. And I'm gonna get into the different shadow aspects of it. But yeah, basically the lovers generally lives like a messy, unconventional life because it's like because like I mentioned, there's no boundaries, there's no structure per se. So this is often our artists, innovators, creators, psychics, and mediums. Oh, we get stiff. Stretching. So the different aspects, the different shadow aspects of the lover is the sensitive, which as I discussed, this is what I dealt with as a kid. So he becomes so emotionally drawn into his feelings that he loses himself. It's the man is not able to tolerate even the slightest bit of shift in his external reality. And the example that it gave in the book was like the man who couldn't tolerate the least bit of light in his room and like literally would go crazy from the noises and the light and everything outside of his apartment. Just basically becoming lost in this ocean of senses to the point where he's a victim of his own sensitivity. So yeah, it's definitely something that I dealt with, and I'm sure many of you have. But I feel like we all have different paths that lead us down different directions, and it's all happening as it needs to. It's all happening to show us what we need to learn and teach the world and give back. So for me, it's been a incredible journey because I've been able to feel so much, but I've been able to utilize the power of the magician, become objective to see all these aspects so that I can step into my warrior and keen energy and to lead from this place that that was once a weakness has become my strength. and a couple other different aspects. There's the addict, and the impotent lover. So the addict, they have very addictive personalities. They immerse themselves in a sea of sensuality by utilizing drugs or even food, just things that they do in excess to numb themselves. And I've used this a lot. I've used kratom on and off. Has been uh, a struggle for me. I haven't like delved it, like I haven't gotten into drugs seriously, but of course marijuana, cannabis rather, food has been a big aspect for me that I use as a crutch to help me to numb myself. And yeah, the addict is essentially seeking that ultimate and continuous orgasm. So because he's not able to find the oneness within himself, he's not able to connect with that deepest part of himself, that center point of who he is. He's constantly seeking outside of himself to for something else to bring him calm and stability. And so when he turns to drugs or alcohol or food, it's like his way of being able to essentially bring him back to that center point. But it's done from a unhealed and uncentered place. So it's not a true, he's not truly coming back to the center because he's relying on external things to do it. And then lastly, the impotent lover. This is the person that experiences a lack of aliveness, enthusiasm. Generally is very depressed, just doesn't have a will to live, doesn't have the desire to do much of anything. It's just like they've been cut off from their sense of feeling to the point where they just essentially given up on an internal level. And I've dealt with this in aspects too. It talks about speaking in a monotone voice. I feel like I've done that over the years. It's like, and even when I used to make videos, I noticed that my voice was very monotone. It was like for me, I had to like focus so much on the structure that I lost that ability to like feel into it, to actually engage and to become lost in it in a good way. Like you getting in the flow is what I'm trying to say, like getting in that flow state. But this, going back to the impotent number, can be translated. So that his lack of vision causes a lot of his issues. It causes his lack of aliveness causes him to be cut off from parts of himself, from seeing the bigger picture, from seeing the grander vision that he truly, on a deeper level, wishes to create. But he's lost that sense of drive to do it. He's lost that connection to the warrior energy to actually take action and make it happen. And this can also be translated into his sex life, to where he experiences the absence of an erect and eager penis, where he's not able to get it up, where he's not able to satisfy his lover. The lover, properly accessed, gives us meaning. It keeps the other archetypes in check and in balance, because it brings you back to like your sense of humanness, your sense of feeling. That's a huge aspect of what makes us human, is being able to feel, being able to express ourselves wholly, fully, and truly. It's good to work with the lover archetype if you wish to find more spontaneity, more joy in your life, to live more abundantly, and to connect with others, to create community, to just expand your life, and to break free of the boundaries that you kept yourself in, the box that you placed yourself in. Essentially, it's important for you to step outside of that box so that you can create a true, meaningful experience here on this plane of existence. And then just a couple of points of how the lover connects to the other archetypes. So the lover needs the king in order to define the limits and boundaries, to give him structure, and to channel that chaos in a creative and expressive way. He needs the warrior in order to be able to act decisively, to detach with the clean cut of a sword, so that he doesn't become immobilized by his sense of sensuality. And then lastly, he needs the magician in order to help him become more objective to these ensnaring and tantalizing emotions that are binding him, that are keeping him trapped in this sea of sensation. To to become more objective, to see the perspective, to see the bigger picture of what's happening, so that he can have that vision and begin to work towards it, to truly begin to really see the fullness of what's happening in his life, and to utilize even what's happened in his own life and translate that back, give that back to the world. So these are all important aspects. Without each of these archetypes, we're going to become imbalanced. It's crucial that we have full integration with all four archetypes if we wish to become truly mature, divine, masculine men. I truly believe that. I believe that if you are, now I'm not saying that any of us are going to be perfect. There's going to be aspects that we're going to deal with, that we're going to struggle with. But if any of these are truly greatly imbalanced, then it's going to create an imbalance in us, and we're not going to have that center point. We're not rather we're not going to be operating from that center point. Doesn't matter which archetype you are. Um, Sorry, it doesn't matter which archetype you're most associated with. If you're not able to connect to the other archetypes, then you're going to get lost within yourself, within your own traumas, within your own shadow aspects, and you're not going to become whole. Instead, you're going to live your life with a false persona, never being who you truly are. And just to wrap it up, bring it all together. Oh, one more stretch. Oh, growing my hair back out. Cut it off back in the beginning of the year, January. New energy, refreshing, very refreshing, but ready to grow it back out and get back to that. Anyway, getting off topic again. So and each of these archetypes contains a piece of the puzzle that we need in order to fully transform our lives, to fully leave the legacy that we wish to leave. And like I just mentioned, if we suppress any of these aspects, it's going to inevitably find its way to the surface, one way or another, and often when we least want it to, or we least expect it to. So there's a few exercises that it had in the book that I wanted to list here that may help you. I'm just going to go through these fairly quickly. The active imagination dialogue, this one was one of my favorites. So basically, you're able to have a conversation with the unconscious parts of yourself. Um, so in the book, it talked about, so there's a couple different scenarios. Um, the one scenario that's easier for me to refer to, he was having issues at work. He was blurting things out. He was saying things that were getting him in trouble, essentially. Like he wasn't able to it's like he wouldn't be able to fully do his job because he was always criticizing people. He was always like saying stuff that he didn't necessarily want to say, but it was like starting to get to the point where he's about to be fired. And so he had a conversation with himself. It was like, what do you want? What are you truly seeking? And eventually that part of himself was able to tell him that he needed some time off. He needed a break. Whether he wanted to take it or not, he was going to get that break. Actually, I did want to actually read a quick little snippet from it, possibly if I can. I feel like it's difficult to describe. It's easier to actually express um, in a direct example. We said, "Who are you?" Pause. "Who are you?" Pause. "What do you want?" Long pause. "Whoever you are, you're getting me in trouble." Okay, so this is like the conversations that he's having with himself, by the way, before I delve into it, because I'm gonna be reading what he's saying and then what this unconscious part of him is saying back. So essentially, it's like parts of yourself are talking to each other and connecting to each other so that you can understand why these things are coming up in the first place. Anyway, back to it. Isn't that interesting? Oh, so there is someone there. Don't be a smartass. Of course there's someone here. Wish I could say the same for you. The lights are on, but nobody's home. What do you want with me? Well, let me think about it. You know what I want, you idiot. I want to make your life miserable. Why? Why? Because it's fun. You think you're so cool? Just imagine if you got fired. Boy, that would be fun. Who are you? My name isn't important. What's important is that I'm here. Why do you want to make my life miserable? Why is that fun for you? Because you deserve a miserable life. I'm miserable. Why are you miserable? Because of what you've done to me. Me? Done to you? Yeah, you jerk. What have I done to you? You don't care about me, so don't pretend that you do. I do care about you. I want to care. Yeah, because you're uncomfortable. That's right. You and I have to settle things between us. No, we don't. You just have to get fired. I won't let you get me fired. Just try to stop me. And then it transitions into talks about the trickster archetype, wearing the man's own personal shadow identity. And then began the serious conversation. So this is the unconscious part of him that's coming up. You put down your real feelings about things, all of your feelings. You're a wimp. I am your feelings, your real feelings. I want to be angry sometimes, and I want to be really glad. And you just wimp around acting superior. Any superiority you have is in me. I'm the real you. I want to be your friend, and I need you to be mine. You're not me. I have my own point of view, and I need you to hear it. But I really will turn over a new leaf. At the same time, I can't let you just blurt things out at work. If I go hungry, so do you. We're in this together, you know. Yeah, okay. But you're going to have to pay attention to me. we've got vacation time coming up, and I want you to go someplace nice this year. Wine, women, song. So you're gonna have to buy some clothes and a ticket someplace. I'd like the tropics. And what's more, and don't be shocked, I want to get laid. It's a deal. And you take the pressure off of me at work, or we will be on a permanent vacation. I won't. Then it's a deal. So that was an example that they had. It was I thought it was a really powerful way of showcasing how to actually have this dialogue with ourselves, these unconscious parts of ourselves. I haven't personally done it myself yet. Actually, I do want to try it, but that's a powerful example. The next one that I wanted to discuss here is invocation. So with invocation, you want to think about the different symbols, the different energies, the different archetypes per se that you want to embody, that you want to connect with, but utilizing different examples of maybe it's someone that you've modeled yourself after, someone that you know in your personal life, someone that you see on a movie. If active imagination dialogue is a conscious, focused way of talking to yourself, invocation is a conscious, focused way of calling up the images that you want to see. So what you do is you want to take an image and uh, you want it to have both mental pictures and spoken words. So this could be like an actor on a movie, like someone embodying the keen energy. I'll just use Aragorn, for example, from The Lord of the Rings. He's a very good example of someone that's embodying the divine masculine energy because he's a king, but yet he embodies the archetypes of the lover, of the magician, and of of the warrior, obviously, because he's protecting, going to battle, like he's embodying all these different archetypes. So after you have this image in your head, you want to call upon that keen energy within yourself, that keen archetype. We'll just use the king for this example, but you want to do it for each archetype or whichever ones you need. So you want to call upon that keen archetype within yourself and then merge your deep unconscious with that image that you have and allow your ego to become his servant. Tell him that you need his help, his power, his orderliness, his manliness. And it gives the example in the book that if you want to connect to the lover archetype, for instance, you connect to the deity Eros to to embody that energy of love, the lover archetype. So that's number two. The third one is admiring men. So this could be men that are living and dead, but it is important and vital to have an actual man that's alive, like an elder that you can talk to, that you can connect with, that you can have guidance from so that they can help direct you back to your center point to connect to parts of yourself that will ultimately allow you to step into the fullness of your being, especially when you are experiencing weak points in your life. This is where you especially want to connect with that energy. It is important for us to do that because it's easy to get lost in in our shadow. It's easy to get beat down by the world to the point where we aren't able to see the fullness of ourselves. And when we have examples of what we can be, it gives us that motivation to step up, to step more into ourselves. And for me, I listen to a lot of motivational videos. Like generally all morning when I wake up, as I'm doing my work, I'm listening to motivational videos. I'm listening to these motivational speakers that have stepped into this energy, this warrior king energy that's like pushing and driving towards a higher vision because I feel like they have stepped into that energy that I want to step into. While I'm not directly talking to them, it's helping me to push myself further outside of my comfort zone. Um, However, it is important. Like I've had several different coaches, and that's helped me to up, step into my masculine energy more because I've been able to see the different perspectives that they are um, that they are embodying, they're basically showing me what's possible and helping me to guide myself back to that point in my own life. And if men aren't available, you can always, watch certain movies, especially reading documentaries, because you get, no, no, not reading documentaries, reading biographies, because it gives you the ability to see their actions and deeds played out firsthand, what they did and how they acted in certain situations, and how they got to where they were, to the point where you actually know who they are. It's like to leave that legacy and how they got to that point. And then lastly, acting as if. So basically just fake it till you make it. It's like even if for instance, if you're an actor in a play and everything's going to shit, everything in your life is, your girlfriend's left you, you lost your apartment, all these things are falling apart, but you still show up and you still embody that role that you're meant to play. The show must go on. You basically step into that and you still fully embody that part of yourself, or rather that not that part of yourself, you fully embody the role that you're stepping into. And as you act more like that energy, it begins to translate into your personal life. So a lot of actors before they before they actually get a certain role is they have to basically set themselves up to step into that role. So what they do is in order to fully act as if they are this character, they will do things in their lives that they wouldn't normally do. I've seen men and women like well, more so men like they would put on weight, both muscular or they'd put on weight to be like fat because it's like whatever role they're playing, they need to bulk up. Like for instance, Gerard Butler in the movie 300, he had to embark upon an intense training regimen in order to strengthen himself like on all levels to become like fully ripped out to the point where he was actually able to act as if he was a Spartan, as if he was actually King Leonidas. But he had to create and set himself up in order to step into that. I've also seen them like starve themselves so that they would appear as a certain character. Like I'm not saying to do this, but it's like it's the point that I'm making that in order to fully act as if they set themselves up to do that before they actually begin that role. And even while you're actually portraying that role, you you start to embody more of that energy. And even characters that they would act as, they would almost start to see themselves as that character. And a funny example is Steve from Blue's Clues. I don't know if any of y'all watch Steve. I watched Blue's Clues as a kid, or still watch it, which I guess it would wouldn't have any relevance now. The one I want to say it because it's specifically Steve. His name in the show was Steve. His name in real life was also Steve. So he actually talks about this, how he had like an identity crisis because he's like, which Steve is the real Steve? Because he got so immersed into this identity of who he was being on the show. Excuse me, that he lost himself and wasn't able to fully distinguish his ego, like his himself, like the Steve himself, from the character that he was playing as Steve. And then just to wrap it all up, lastly, here are some things that you can do in order to embody these different archetypes. So if you need the king, as I mentioned, even if everything's falling apart, just sit on that throne and act like the king. And the more that you act and feel into that and fully embody that within your being, rather, you're essentially wearing that persona to the point where you start to embody that energy within parts of your psyche. It's like you absorb that into your unconscious. You start to actually act like that. If you need the lover energy, begin to observe the tiniest details and how they make you feel. So it could be like forcing yourself to look at a sunset. Just look at the different oranges and reds and how the different colors correspond to each other, how the environment begins to change, how the world around begins to shift and evolve as you observe all these changes, these subtle changes happening. You need the warrior energy. Simply get up, force yourself to do something. Go out, take a vigorous walk, go out and lift weights, maybe start a martial arts or an exercise class or yoga, even even forcing yourself to do tasks like if you have a stack of bills, just taking action and get started on that stack of bills to get it done. The warrior energy is all about taking action. Lastly, if you need the magician energy, next time someone comes to you for wisdom, act as if you actually have something valuable to say. Because the truth is that we all have so much more to share than we realize. We all have so much more wisdom to give the world, to give to other people. And when someone comes to you for advice or they come to you with an issue, just step into that magician energy as if you are this wise old man and you have years of experience, even if you don't, and answer it from your heart. Allow it to essentially flow out of you. It's like you can begin to channel these messages, even if you aren't even consciously thinking of them. They start to flow through you. Because the magician is all about tapping into the hidden energy, the it's like tapping into the esoteric. But you can do that in your everyday life just by embodying this within yourself, tapping into the collective unconscious and bringing that into your beings, channeling those messages. So that's all I have for you today. Uh, I am so grateful for all of you for being here. This was I didn't add this to have a graph of how the divine masculine relates to all of these because the shadow, I'm gonna have to add it in there for next week, perhaps. But this is a key aspect of the divine masculine because without it, we would fall into the realm of our shadow and begin to embody these shadow archetypes to the point where we get lost in that persona and we get lost and we aren't able to find our way back to our center point, back to ourself. So if you would be interested and you're still on this call, still on this video, I invite you to, if you're not already part of the group, to join. I should have a link down below to join the school group. School's ran by Alex Ramosi, Sam Ovens, and Andrew. Sorry, Andrew Kirby. The name's not coming to my head. But it's an incredible platform. I love everything about it, how the how we engage and interact. I've learned so much from so many different people, and it's helped me to fully step into these different archetypes of my own energy. And the fact of me even creating this presentation today is because of my group. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this right now. I wouldn't have created this presentation. I wouldn't have done the 30-day challenge I had mentioned earlier. So it's really inspired me. If you want to check it out, I encourage you to check it out, even if you don't join the group. There's so many different other groups out there that I'm sure you could find. It's like social media, but like online courses mixed together. I don't even know how to describe it. It's like Udemy mixed with like Facebook or something, but better. I don't know, but it's an incredible platform, and if you feel called to, I would love to have you on the group. I am only accepting men in the group. Unfortunately, if you're a woman, I do apologize, but I'm really focused on connecting to men and to healing that masculine energy through working with men. Um, I do have a Facebook group as well, which I don't have a link for that, but yeah, you can always reach out to me and I can send you an invite. I'd love to connect with you regardless. So appreciate you for being here. Hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Peace, love, and honesty.